this morning. So good morning, everybody. Welcome back again to VCE Ag Today. This is December the 2nd, 2021. Topic of discussion this morning is fertilizer prices are rising and why. Any of you that have been listening to agricultural media lately, getting fertilizer quotes for next growing season, talking to producers, you probably know that a lot of panic going on right now in the fertilizer industry and looking at pricing and availability. Definitely a stark difference from earlier on this year and last growing season. So pleased to be joined this morning by three individuals from the Department of Agricultural Economics at Virginia Tech. I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Olga Isengildina Massa, our Assistant Professor at Agricultural Economics, Patrick Kayser, our Virginia Land Use Value Analyst, and Jayson Gill, a graduate student within that department. So thank you all this morning for joining us. These individuals are going to present some information and give us some speculation as to why prices may be where they are and what may be happening in the future to hopefully help producers kind of ride this storm and make good decisions going into the next growing season. So again, thank you all for being with us this morning. Thank you to all of our guests that are here this morning. Hopefully this information will be helpful. Just a few housekeeping notes for you. As always, the presentation is being recorded. So if you want to share this later on with someone else, friends, family, coworkers, please feel free to do so if the information would be beneficial for them. It will be added to our VCE Ag Today playlist, and you can find the link to that list on your title slide now. Also, just as a courtesy note, if you would please keep muted throughout the presentation this morning to avoid disruption. We will open it up at the end, as always, for question and answer and discussion session. So if you have questions, please hold those to the end, or if you'd like to enter them into the chat window, we'd be happy to address those at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, Dr. Massa, if you'd like to go ahead and get started and share your screen, we'll go ahead and begin.
You're still muted, Dr. Massa. Dr. Massa, we couldn't hear what you said before because you were muted.
Okay, I have three screens here, and it took me a while to find that mute button. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Patrick and I are going to give a presentation this morning, but we want to thank Jayson very much for helping us prepare all the materials. It's a joint effort. So I'll ask Patrick to go ahead and get started, and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, hey, everybody. Thanks for spending part of your Thursday with us. On occasion, I have the pleasure to work with Dr. Massa on agribusiness and market outlook projects. So I really want to thank you all for another opportunity for us to collaborate and discuss an important topic for you all with these production input costs, specifically fertilizer. So let's get started here. Fertilizer prices have been increasing for almost a year now, and prices started increasing in January of 2021 and have continued to climb, which you can see clearly here on this graph. And the last time we had record high prices in the US was in 2008. And the spike in 2008 was really a classic example of basic supply and demand model that we use in microeconomics. And I'm a believer that we can learn a lot from history. So I want to talk a little bit about that spike in 2008. First, there were increases in the cost of raw inputs, energy, and transportation, which increased the cost of fertilizer production, which affects supply. And at the same time, prices of agricultural commodities were increasing from 2007 to 2008. Which encouraged producers to expand acres and to increase fertilizer use to boost yields. And this led to increased global demand and pushed fertilizer prices even higher. Okay, and you'll see later on in our presentation that some of these same things are happening again in 2021. and the final point on that last slide was prices have increased domestically and also in European countries and India and some others there too. Now, is not just one fertilizer product that has experienced record prices. We've seen prices increase across the board and significantly increase in the month of November here. And this chart is a DTN chart, and DTN has began collecting data for fertilizer products since 2008. And I don't know this for sure, but it probably as a consequence of the price spike that was occurring. And DTN publishes prices for 8 major fertilizer products, 4 dry and 4 liquid on a weekly basis. And what they do is they survey over 300 retailers for their index of national averages. So this is a really nice public data source, and I use it in my use value work. What I do is I compare these national prices directly to local fertilizer prices. So we can look at these local fertilizer prices now. This is an AMS report that's published weekly as well. And it gives us a nice comparison to the DTN data. The report has price ranges and averages for fertilizer and other production inputs like diesel fuel and propane. And this is great data, but the downside is that USDA only has this report for 5 states. Unfortunately, Virginia isn't one of those 5. So we use the North Carolina report, which of course isn't that bad of an alternative. And the AMS and the DTN data are both publicly available. So if you'd like the links to track this info on your own, I'm happy to provide that to you. So how do these 2 data sources compare? As we hope to see, these 2 are fairly correlated. So for potassium and phosphorus products, which is that bottom row here, we see that the North Carolina price in red is typically higher than the DTN price in blue. We also see that the North Carolina bulk price, which is in the yellow line, is lower than the North Carolina price, but still higher than the DTN price. And we also plotted the average of the products for each nutrient, which you can see represented by the green dashed line there. And before I turn it over to Dr. Massa, I want to give a shout out to Ann Brown at the library. She has automated our data collection process for this. So cleaning the data is actually a lot shorter than it normally would be. And she's an incredible help to us. So that's my introduction. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Massa.
Thank you, Patrick. As you mentioned, as Robbie alluded to in introduction, what is the cause of this fertilizer price surge? And we are observing some things that have happened before. And in addition to that, we are observing some new things that haven't happened before, because 2021 is not a normal year. You know, nothing about this year has been normal. So from our standpoint, I can see a number of factors that are boosting the fertilizer prices up. And this include the higher cost of production of fertilizer. And I'm sure you've heard the natural gas prices as being one of those components. We've also observed some production and supply interruptions due to COVID. We also have very strong demand due to high commodity prices, and inflation, as you have all felt, is probably some of the reason for the increased cost as well as increased output prices. And as we dig into this issue further, one thing that we have to keep in mind when we're thinking about fertilizer markets is the fact that it's a global market. We're not isolated from the rest of the world, and whatever issues people are having in other countries would indirectly affect us through imports and exports. How dependent are we on these foreign markets? Not terribly. We do produce quite a bit of nitrogen. We do import some urea, but we are also big producers in UAN and anhydrous. So we do have a lot of fertilizer production domestically, but being in the part of the world, there are strong export forces that would affect our markets as well. So going back to the list of reasons that push the fertilizer prices up, production costs. We've been talking about that a lot, and natural gas is definitely a big reason for that. We have seen substantial increases in natural gas prices domestically, but we haven't seen anything close to what's going on in Europe and in Asia, where prices have doubled and tripled in the last year, during the last year. So this is a big issue. It's not expected to resolve itself anytime soon. And this is a clear reason for those prices to go up. In addition to that, we have other production costs going up due to sulfur and ammonia increasing in prices as refinery curtailments due to COVID-19 restricted supply. So the supply restrictions that are affecting everything else are present here as well. So how are those supply restrictions playing out? Well, sometimes those high prices and limited supplies lead to decrease in production, as simple as that. So in Europe, where natural gas is almost 6 times as expensive as it was last year, big fertilizer companies are forced to just drop their fertilizer production. And that is going to affect those world markets, and that is going to affect us indirectly through those world markets. This is another example of what's going on in the world markets. China has banned its phosphate exports until at least June of next year, due to trying to protect their domestic farmers and ensure that they have access to fertilizer for their own uses. So even though we don't buy much phosphate from China, it's a big player and they're taking a big chunk off the world market. So that creates a deficit, and that affects prices worldwide. So this deficit would affect us indirectly through those ripple effects. We've had some supply interruptions domestically as well. During Hurricane Ida, one of the largest glyphosate production plants in the US was shut down. It should be back online now, but that created a temporary interruption in domestic production as well. So in addition to supply issues and input prices, we have strong demand. We have all enjoyed strong commodity prices, and that those commodity prices create higher demand for fertilizer use across the world. And as you can see here on this graph, even with high fertilizer prices, the ratio of fertilizer price to commodity to output price is still high and offers profitability for most commodities across the world. Last but not least, inflation. It's observed by all of us. We've seen it everywhere. Why do we have this inflation? We have supply chain problems across the board, and those supply deficiencies, supply deficits cause prices to go up. We have a lot of additional money that's been pumped into the economy through stimulus projects. We have strong economic growth during this year. We have loose monetary policies that would also encourage inflation. And finally, we have a reduction in labor supply. And that leads wages to increase, which in turn leads to higher inflation as well. So the big question on everyone's mind is, how long will it last? Can we just wait it out and hopefully prices of fertilizer will come down soon? Unfortunately, I cannot give you that promise. As you can see from the slide, no one is expecting this situation to resolve itself quickly. The World Bank is expecting fertilizer prices to stay high into at least early 22. We have quotes here from FC Stone. They're expecting the shortages to continue into the spring 22 planting season. And finally, in the initial graph that we showed, that showed the peak in 2008, can we expect this peak to resolve itself as quickly as it did in 2008? The argument is, at this point, the climate policy means that there is no finance available for natural gas production expansion. So it is likely that those natural gas prices are going to continue to remain high, at least into the near future. Another quote here talking about what would it take for prices to come down. And it includes a major reduction in corn acres, substantial drop in natural gas prices, and Chinese government allowing exports to happen again. The combination of those three things is just not likely to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. So what are the implications? What are going to be potential effects of this high fertilizer prices? We're likely going to see some switching from corn to soybeans, according to multiple sources. How much switching we're going to see is not clear. I think corn prices are still strong and show corn to be quite competitive with soybeans for the next crop year. So we'll see how that will play out. We can also see how other countries are dealing with similar problems. Brazil is really struggling right now. They are very much reliant on fertilizer imports. They import about 80% of their fertilizer requirements. They're in their planting season they're getting very close to their planting season. They're not dealing with it right now, but they're going to be dealing with it sooner than we are. And in addition to high prices, they're facing major shortages where you just can't find those inputs in the market. So the idea is they do expect strong revenues this coming year, but with huge increases in the cost of production due to high fertilizer prices, the producer returns are expected to be much lower for this next crop. And the way producers are dealing with is through rationing. So the idea is that they will be applying a lot less fertilizer, and that is likely to affect the yields as well. Finally, we have also gotten some advice in the Farm Doc article that was released the day before yesterday. And rationing is also on the table for us as well. So this next crop year, the idea is going to be to manage profitability rather than productivity, and maybe to stay away from those additional applications that would increase yields, but at a very high cost. So that's pretty much all that we have prepared for you today. I would like to see if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Olga, Patrick, and Jayson. Appreciate the information this morning, really helpful for producers, hopefully. So we'll open it up for questions and discussion now. For those of you on Zoom with us, if you just press the small mute microphone in the bottom left-hand corner, it should unmute you. If you have questions or comments, concerns, hopefully we can have a good discussion. So any questions? Check the chat, see if I see anything. Don't see anything in the chat window right now. No questions? I'm surprised. Well, y'all did such a great job covering it all and giving everybody this information. I guess they need some time to digest it and decide what they want to do.
Sorry, we didn't have better news though. It's going to be a struggle.
Well, nonetheless, we appreciate y'all being with us this morning. If those on the call end up having questions or think of something after the presentation, just contact myself or any of the other ag agents that are a part of VCE Ag Today, and we'll be happy to forward those on to the specialists or try to get you some answers. So again, just really appreciate the three of you, Dr. Massa, Patrick, and Jayson, being with us this morning and sharing the information. Just a pleasure as always to work with the folks there on campus. And also thank you to those that have joined us this morning. Hopefully the information is helpful for you. Again, it has been recorded, so if you need to go back and watch this again or share it with somebody, please feel free to do that. We put it on our YouTube playlist for VCE Ag Today. Also, last but not least, just like to thank the other agents that make the effort possible: Stephanie Romelchek, Laura Maxine, Frank Long, and Trent Jones. So thank you to those folks for all of their prep work, advertisement, everything they do to help make this program possible. Finally, you will see on your screen now the link to our program evaluation. So, if you have things that you're interested in, questions, please go to that and take just a couple seconds and give us ideas for the program. We'll be happy to try to find somebody to give some information and update for that. So thank you again, and we appreciate everybody being here. And I don't think there's anything else. Happy holidays to everyone. We will resume in January. So this will be our last scheduled meeting for this year. We will resume in January. So just be on the lookout for emails from all of the agents as to our next program date. So hope everyone has a great holiday season and a happy new year in 2022. So thank you all again, and appreciate everybody being here and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Robbie.
Thank you so much, Dr. Massa.